No, I was gonna say it's last night, she started texting.
Good evening and welcome to Mississippi University for Women's Low Residency MFA programs full residency for summer 2026. This is our last evening of readings featuring Ellen and Fentress as our faculty reader, Teresa Nicholas as our thesis reader who has successfully defended her thesis. And starting this out, Andy Gunter and Gavin.
Good evening. My name is Andy Gunter. I just finished my first semester, so I guess you could say I'm now a semester and a half through. And tonight I'm going to be reading 3 flash fiction pieces, and they're all different formats, so just gonna have to kind of stick with me on that. Right. Feline noir. I didn't expect a young redhead to be in the office when I walked in, but there she was, spread out on the lounger. My lounger. She must have thought she looked good because she left little to the imagination. Sorry, honey, I said as I sat down facing her. You're not exactly my type. That's when the man walked into the room and said, "Are you making friends, Ray? This is Millie. I'm fostering her. She needs to get used to cats, so be nice." I said nothing and walked out of the room, my tail switching back and forth. The man did this sometimes, bringing in some waif off the street. He'd clean them up, teach them some manners before singing them off to a better life, like some kind of interspecies Pygmalion. I soon learned that the brat had unexpected depths. Millie turned out to be smarter than other slobbers the man had brought home. She had learned to stay off my lounger after only one swat and hiss, something most slobs take weeks to figure out. She enjoyed watching the old black and white movies with me, too, which was a first in my experience. One day she found me laying in the office, covered in nip, just completely gassed. After a long day of napping, I was focused on the blanket moving between my toes as I needed it. "Mr. Ray," she hesitated at the doorway. "Are you okay?" I didn't respond. The blanket still smelled like the woman, even after a year. I kept on kneading. I didn't want to lose focus on the smell. Millie had grown in the weeks that she'd been hiding out at my place, and she was now all legs. She hadn't grown into them, though, and the word gangly came to mind. Millie walked over to the blanket and gave it a sniff. "Wow, she smells beautiful." We both knew she meant the woman who had left me and the man so long ago. The blanket was the only thing left that smelled like her. You have no idea, kid. My hangover the next morning was one for the books, and I was beginning to feel every one of my 8 years. I was on my lounger in the office, soaking in a sunbeam, paw over my eyes, when Millie came in. She was carrying something in her mouth. It was a stretch of blue fabric with white tassels on the end, something the woman used to wear. I hadn't seen it since she'd left, but I could pick up the woman's smell from across the room. "I thought you might like to have something else of hers," Millie said as she put the scarf down next to me. I am a retriever, after all. Millie grew into quite the firecracker. She could take a swat, open doors, and knock down anyone who got in our way during a chase. She was the best partner I ever had. It couldn't last. Millie was all grown up and fully trained. She could go out on her own and do well. Wasn't that the whole point? I was snoozing in the office when the man made the phone call. "Yeah, I have to keep her. She and my cat, Raymond Chandler, have bonded. She won't leave him alone, and he lets her do whatever." He paused a moment for the response. "No, it's perfect. She gets back from deployment in a week. She'll be so surprised. She's been wanting a dog." Scopophobia. I was 12 years old, going on 40, the first time my family went to Disney World. My dad had decided that my brother and I needed to experience the joy of seeing a giant mouse in person before standing in line for It's a Small World. In my pre-adolescent wisdom, I told my parents that I was not interested in getting any pictures with the costumed cast. I was too cool for that. The truth was, I had recently got my first round of braces, and the thought of having pictures taken of me horrified me. There is almost no photographic evidence I was ever 12 years old. Despite myself, I fell under Walt Disney's spell and started to have fun. I even willingly interacted with people. Near the castle at the Magic Kingdom, there was a Cinderella in a blue dress, long blonde hair. Beauty and sweetness just radiated out of her, and I was enthralled. "Hi, what's your name?" she asked me as my mom led me towards her. "Alice," I answered with the confidence of having no life experience yet. I was not going to let her turn me into a little kid bursting with excitement, so I played it cool again. "What's your name?" "My name is Cinderella. Are you having fun?" I grunted in the affirmative. Cinderella's smile wavered slightly, and she swallowed deeply. "Why don't I get a picture of the two of you?" my mom asked. Her eyes were soft and pleading. She had respected my boundaries during the rest of the trip and deserved at least one picture of me. I stood near Cinderella but kept my arms down at my side. I was willing but not enthusiastic about my braces showing in the photo. "Come on, get closer," my mom said as she started to aim her big DSLR at us. I scooted closer and Cinderella grabbed both of my shoulders, leaned down to my level. It was a cute pose, but it also kept me from moving. And that's when I heard the grumble, bubbling, growling. Cinderella's stomach was making noises loud enough for me to hear through the crowd noise. Before I could react, Cinderella turned towards me for the picture, and I will never forget her face. It was a dance of surprise, realization, and fear in the moment before it happened. It came from her with no hesitation, erupting from her mouth in a spew of hot liquid. It hit my face directly. Hot, vinegary, chunky. That's when my mom took the photo. I didn't say a single word for the rest of the trip. But Disney did comp the entire week for us, making my dad extremely happy. He said the sacrifices I made for the family would be rewarded in heaven. The next time he talked about planning a vacation, he turned and asked me, "Any chance you could get Goofy to shit himself?" Little Girl Dutch. This is a series of short form videos like TikToks of a teenage girl just talking to the camera. It's clear she is outside, but the background is otherwise not very visible at first. Video 1, Dutch. "Hey everybody, it's your girl Dutch. I'm filming this a couple of miles from my home. I went to the store to grab something to eat, and on the way back, I decided I should walk along the river to get some exercise, mental health, and all that, right? So I've got a good rhythm. I'm listening to my favorite podcast, taking some pics for the gram, when I see some water just coming out of the dam. My local followers know what I'm talking about. It's basically a big concrete wall next to the river. It's supposed to protect the town from flooding. I don't know how it all works. Anyway, I see the stream of water shooting out of the dam, and as I get closer to it, I realize it's a lot of water. Like, a lot. I figured that isn't supposed to happen, and guys, I don't know why, but I stuck my finger in the hole and stopped the leak. Earlier, I tried taking my finger out, but I got sprayed with water immediately, and it looked like it was more water than before. And I don't know why I did it, but I plugged up the hole with my finger again. This time I used my left hand, so at least I can use my phone. So that's what's happening with me right now. I'll be home as soon as the police or firefighters or whoever come take care of this. I'll start my regular stream then, so if it's a little late, blame the dam. Dutch signs off with her signature high-pitched farewell. Bye. Video 2. Hey everyone, so I'm still out by the dam. I talked to the dispatch people, and they said it was a busy night, but that someone would come help me soon. Until then, I'm just supposed to stay cool, which is pretty easy. It's a little chilly outside. Obviously, I won't be doing my usual stream tonight. I'll make up for it later. But until my knights in shining armor show up, I'm going to hang out, eat some peanut butter, and maybe listen to some more podcasts. I've got a power brick and portable tripod in my purse, so I am all set. But if you're in the area and want to drop by, some company wouldn't hurt. Thanks so much for all the likes and comments supporting me. It's really sending me some good vibes. I'm pretty lucky to have such great friends. Bye! Video 3. Open on a selfie angle, and Dutch has obviously been crying. Hey y'all, I've been out here for 4 hours now, and no one has come. I called the fire department, the police, AAA, and the Boy Scouts. They all said they would be here soon, but that was hours ago. I called or texted all my friends in town. Most didn't answer. A couple said that they knew why I was calling, but wouldn't help me. They said I got myself into this mess and I needed to learn to be responsible for myself. I even called my parents, and if you've been watching me for a while, you know how hard that was for me to do. She takes a big breath, exhales slowly, and it's obvious calming technique. You're probably wondering how the dam is doing. Well, I've kept my finger in place since the last video. It's starting to get sore and cold, but no leaks. But I've noticed some cracks. I think it's hard for me to tell because I've been staring at this thing for hours. It's probably all in my head and isn't a thing. And whenever they get here, they'll be able to fix the hole and everything will be fine. A long stretch of silence as Dutch avoids crying. So that's what's happening. I'd keep my stream up, but I need to save battery and I don't want to imagine what my phone bill will be next month. So I'll post an update when I get home. Until then, bye. Video 4. Camera on Dutch's face. She obviously hasn't slept, but she's more animated than before. All right, I have been here all night and no one has come to help me. Not the police, not the fire department, not the city's engineers, no one. And to make it worse, none of you, yes, you, have come to help either. You've watched me. I know you have. I've seen the number of views each video has. But not a single one of you has done anything other than commenting or liking or sharing. Well, guess what? That does nothing to help me. All that does is show other people how much you care and how supportive you are. Poor little Dutch. Look at her. She's so strong. She's so brave. I can never be like that. I'll just let her know that I believe in her. That's what she really needs. No! That's not at all what I need. I need help. Actual physical help. Because the cracks are real. I'm not imagining them. They are getting bigger. They are starting to leak. And I can't fix this problem on my own. My sad attempt at plugging this leak isn't enough. If it's just me, this dam will break. The town will flood. People will die. I will die. And you will have sat there and done nothing except watch for your own entertainment, assuming that someone else will fix the problem. But everyone thinks that, so no one helps, and a dam breaks. Despite everyone seeing the cracks, Dutch's voice returns to her previous style, but with a bitter undertone. But anyway, thanks for watching my final stream, and thanks to all my followers out there for their support over the years. Bye. Thank you.
Okay, nervous. Mic check. Everybody hear me?
Yes.
All right, good. So I'm gonna read. Oh wait, crap. Introduction. My name is Gavin. I'm an awkward wreck. Most of you know me. Most of you don't. I don't know, but hello anyway. So I've decided to read a short story I cooked together based off of an experience with daycare. Hold your assumptions, please. One more game. Two kids, siblings at a daycare after school, play their favorite game. A game called Discord, Fight of Your Life. One of those older 2D fighting games with 20 different fighters and some of the most brutal combos in the genre. Me, never got into it personally, but I loved watching them play. The older kid's name is Maxie. That ain't his real name, but most of us are too used to hearing him called that. Big kid, goes to middle school, where all bundles of joy turn into little devils. His sister, Juju, she's not there yet, thank whichever God's around. Little tomboy, friendly type. Maxie's good despite that dark hair covering his eyes, and I've seen him be gentler with a controller than most kids are with the newfangled iPads. Juju's not bad either, but there's a big gap in how they play. To me, they both seem like berserkers, always throwing down like it's a pro match. Whenever they're going against each other, Maxie shifts gears to the game's tank fighters. Today, though, nah, today's different. Juju showed up alone. A look of guilt all over her face. Juju, what happened? Where's Maxie? I asked. Only a hug and have her tears get all over my apron. Maxie's in trouble. Big trouble, Juju said, and continued after a sniffle. There was a fight. A big football kid started picking on me, and Maxie did a combo on him. The look in my face shifted a bit. Changed from one type of concerned adult to another. Opened to hell and back. This combo Maxie did wasn't from Discord Fight of Your Life. Juju, what did Maxie do? I asked after mustering some composure, fear creeping down up my spine. Because of what might happen if Maxie blames the video games I left out as a way to make the kids happy. I knew I should have been more selective, but I figured kids these days would be able to handle it. Juju sniffled again and blew her nose on a hanky I pulled off my desk for her. She just needed a second to let it out. And then she spoke again. Maxie beat up the football kid. There were punches and kicks and then the combo, like from the game. My face drained like a wet Picasso. I took a breath and looked out the door to check. Maxie and Juju are usually the first kids here, though there's trickling in throughout the hour. Didn't see anyone else outside yet, and thankfully so. What combo? I asked, after turning back to face her. She looked up at me, those innocent hazel eyes, just as scared and worried as I am, but for a totally different reason. You're not in trouble, Juju. Please trust me when I say that. I need to know how badly the football kid was hurt, I said, trying to reassure her. Well, the football kid tried to crush Maxie with a bad hug. He's really big, so Maxie did a jump in the bad hug. Football kid staggered like the fighters do before a finisher and dropped Maxie. Maxie then kicked the back of the football kid's leg, put him in a headlock, and slammed his head on a metal pole. Juju said every word, draining the color from me faster and faster till I looked like I'd been one of those really old Burton flicks. Knowing that bad times were coming had me shaking. My nerves and knots so bad I could feel the headache start pulsing in the veins on my forehead. I checked the door again, still no arrivals, and I looked back at Juju. All right, Juju, go ahead and rummage through the toy box. I need a minute to unwind, I said as I went to turn on the console, playing an entirely different game from that 2D fighter. This other game, called Kindred Spirits, is a fantasy exploration game like the Animal Companions, based on the really old Ni no Kuni and Pokemon games. I set a timer, 20 minutes. There it is. And spent that time in the game's creature zoo. Juju rummaged through the toy box, but didn't find anything that held her interest. She decided to peek at the game. I took precious little time to de-stress in. I noticed her, but this game was less violent than the other one, so I didn't stop her. I got up when the timer went off and made to turn off the console, but Juju's starry eyes were so hooked on the calmer game, I decided to let her play it. I knew I'd have a long chat with some angry parents, or at the very least a few questions to answer. But I don't blame the games for what happened. The guilt rests on my shoulders, not the machine or the kids. I should have been better. Now I wait. Wait as the kids finally started turning up, had their usual play. Wait while their parents come by to take them home. Wait on Juju and Maxie's parents. Dreading the next step from all this. Any minute now. Okay, I'm a nervous wreck, so that's all you get. It's your phone.
With my glasses, with the allergies.
Hello, I'm Ellen Ann Fentress. I'm a nonfiction teacher in the program. I was talking this week about what's your iconic space as a writer? What from your time and your place and your obsessions, what's your story to tell? You probably have a signature one. And in the time in my own writing life, in the time of the last few decades of reassessing American history and Southern history, well, there was a big overlap in a story that was mine to tell and part of reassessing Southern history. So this is about the story I wrote for Bitter Southerner about going to an all-white academy when school desegregation started. It's called, Are You a Seg Academy Alum Too? Let's Talk. The stakes were high in 1970 when Deep South school desegregation transformed the region's classrooms, stadiums, and teacher lounges into America's most integrated, at least for a while. A few months before, the Supreme Court had called a halt to nearly 2 decades of post-1954 Brown Stonewall. Racial history shifted in one sweep. Black and white, children and educators, lives shifted, lives changed, old patterns shattered. The transformation, wrapped in clear, historic, moral purpose, affected over 11 million children. And then there were us. I'm one of an estimated 750,000 Deep South white alumni of the segregation academies that sprouted up in 11 states to defy the ideal of racial equality. Films like the Virginia set Remember the Titans and The Best of Enemies, based on Durham, North Carolina events, center on that hard-won moment of public school transformation in the 70s. The Academy's parallel stories, we don't talk about it much. In fact, we alums prefer skipping over our high school histories due to the potential for blowback that the truth of our all-white alma maters provokes now. In Mississippi, U.S. Senator Cindy Hyde-Smith's 1977 graduation from Lawrence County Academy ballooned into a campaign issue in the 2018 Senate race after a newspaper report brought on national attention. Former Governor Phil Bryant has stated he attended Jackson Public Schools, yet he spent his final years at McLemore Academy, graduated in 1973. The fact is, however, that our academy credentials matter in far more scenarios than the unlikely one of a run for office. Our academy educations matter all the time. They matter not just in terms of what people ought to know about us, but just as important in what we know or dare to confront about ourselves. Outwardly, we look okay, right? Right? It's over Faulknerian to say so, but the past not past. Certainly not for white academy alums living and engaging in the 21st century. Our story is not just history, but an unfolding question. How does our defiant schooling inadvertently still shape us in our heads by default? It does, of course, in unconscious and conscious ways. Among Mississippi Academy alums aren't just ruby red office holders like Hyde-Smith in Washington and Bryant, who spent 8 years in the governor's mansion. Other Mississippians who've made a national mark in the culture came out of white academies too. These include the actor Cecil Ward, Lamar School, 1973, and blockbuster novelist Donna Tartt, Kirk Academy, 1981, and Catherine Stockett, Jackson Preparatory School, 1987. Author Steve Yarborough graduated from Indianola Academy in 1975, CNN anchor Shepard Smith from Marshall Academy, while writer-journalist Neely Tucker ruled as Mr. Starkville Academy in 1982. Britney Spears and Jamie Lynn Spears attended Park Lane Academy in Macomb. Let the record reflect that I was in the Pillow Academy class of 1974 Hall of Fame. Hyde-Smith's Segregation Academy was about 150 miles south of mine. Bryant's Academy in Jackson used to play mine in football. In my memory, McLemore parents were famous for spoiling for a post-game fight with our parents. In Mississippi, our cohort represented an estimated 42,300 white children who disappeared from the state's public schools to enter private ones as integration took hold in earnest. In 1964, the state had less than 20 private schools. The number ballooned to 236 by 1971. I enrolled at Pillow Academy in January 1970, the moment when, due to the ruling in Alexander v. Holmes, 33 Mississippi school districts, including our Delta towns, were directed by the U.S. Supreme Court to cease 15 years of post-Brown delay. Schools were to reopen after winter break, fully integrated in some districts. White students were told to take their public school textbooks home at Christmas to use at their new academy in January. I'm certain the all-white academy experience left its mark on me. It did on others too. If Hyde-Smith's and Bryant's records show racial antagonism, and they do, they came out of high schools founded on exactly that. Race plays into the works of Mississippi novelists who come out of the academies as well, either by confronting white supremacy or sometimes by simply producing work in which whiteness can't help but come through. Sometimes both happen. My academy was a cream yellow prefabricated steel building in a cotton field near the Mississippi town of Greenwood. My parents and parents of my 8th grade friends plucked us from our public school ahead of the approaching Black enrollment increase. My friends and I hated Pill Academy first, not because we were racially enlightened. I won't insult you with a cover-up story, but because the school was surprisingly big and chaotic. We were simply unhappy at being deposited into this raw new building outside the city limits with white strangers from 5 or so counties. Our former oak-shaded blonde brick Greenwood Public School had been familiar and better equipped with features like a cafeteria and a feeling of belonging. Everyone in that area in the South, white and Black, all 11 million of us who were school age, has a story on how our paths shifted. In that way, we did have a shared experience, the only common interracial one for those of us in the academies. Back then, I felt bad about my new school's obvious purpose. I silently fretted that I'd be asked point blank what school I attended by someone who was Black. I cringed at the insult my answer represented, but I needn't have worried over a conversation so unlikely. Despite living in the Mississippi Delta, an area with the highest proportion of Black residents of any region in the country, I surreally never actually knew one Black teen in my town of 23,000. That was an immediate byproduct of academy schooling, one that, of course, limits the stock of life experiences I had available to draw on as an adult. At that outpost in the Delta field, my 70 high school years were average in some ways. The Jackson 5 and Gladys Knight as a soundtrack, shag haircuts, and repeated reelings of the Sonny Corleone sex scenes in the Godfather paperback. Before long, the new academy developed school trappings like a photography club and a Valentine dance as niceties beyond the school's bedrock racist mission. If my friends and I hated moving to the academy initially, we eventually settled in. It was our one and only version of the high school experience. The teachers were all well-intentioned in the classroom as most. No one teaches to get rich, academy faculty included. While some teachers had fled to the academy to sidestep integration, other teachers landed there simply because they needed a job and the academy was hiring. Inside, I can't say there were even any overt conversations about the school's white supremacist purpose. It hardly needed to be articulated, though. It was handled by the euphemistic, loaded explanation that Pilla had been established for a quality education. So did the other schools. Even now, on checking academies' websites, there's a usual explanation that their town came to feel a need for a quality private school in the year, surprise, 1970. Outside the official messaging, weekend vandalism in town shouted in loud pain. In a history of Mississippi school desegregation titled Just Trying to Have School, Mary Carol Miller remembers Pill Academy boys coming to integrated Greenwood High on weekends, painting slurs on the parking lot pavement. In turn, Greenwood High School students sneaked onto the Pillow grounds to scrawl redneck tech on the parking lot. To be fair, what we learned in Pillow history class was distorted, true, but so was public school curriculum then as well. Enslaved people had enjoyed good treatment and Reconstruction. The brief years when Black Mississippians held office and voted in substantial numbers was an era of white suffering like the Civil War itself. None of us heard a word about the lynching of Emmett Till in our hometown's backyard, although the visiting Chicago teen's murder had drawn international coverage in 1955 and launched the civil rights movement. When I finally heard about the Till case, I was 25, living 260 miles away, and it was the 80s. I recognized the last name of classmates I'd known, whose elders had been in law enforcement, and other parents who had led the winning defense of Till's murderers. After their acquittal, the murderers confessed for Look magazine. Bryant's Grocery, the site where Till allegedly flirted with the owner, was 9 miles straight up County Road 518 from my former public school. Here's the aftermath of academy credentials, I think. The imperative to gauge how the thinking bred in such a school, along with growing up inside a white society that invested huge energy in the segregation academy's creation, lingers inside the head still, even if switched on silent. We were consciously and misguidedly furnished an unbending white universe. I wonder how the region and all of us academies, stamped by the academy would have been different if an alternative had happened and locals had worked to invest fully in the public schools and making them work. Instead, I'm uncertain I can ever completely disconnect the old white-centered framework inside deep places in my head. The point of our rigid academy schooling and parallel existence was to keep us blind to all beyond it. This blocks you from knowing what you don't know. Minds that result from an immersion like that are like the baffled fish in the parable. When asked how's the water, the fish asks, what's water? The fish can't grasp what's distinctive about its surroundings, comprehensively white in my case. A 1971 research paper released by the Southern Regional Council on Segregation Academy said as much, quote, many of these new schools with their underlying philosophy of never are a warping influence on the children who attend. Even aside from the implications of removing children to a segregated situation in a democratic country, it is important to note that many of these schools are motivated by an extremely right-wing philosophy, which in the name of patriotism and quality education is a perversion of the national ideals. When it comes to turning up photographs of blackface dress-up in the past of current white politicians, I get their capacity for tone-deaf oblivion. It was a byproduct of our school years, a time when the laws had changed, but many white heads didn't intend to. Rather than receiving a quality education, the truth was that our shutaway school ensured our ignorance to all beyond our white lock-in in the middle of Cottonville. During that 2018 Senate campaign, Hyde Smith also made headlines for joking about a public hanging as she ran to represent the state with the highest number of documented lynchings in U.S. history. As for Bryant, he invited the polarizing President Trump to the Mississippi Civil Rights Museum's 2017 opening, setting off a first-day boycott by Black supporters, including the late civil rights icon, U.S. Representative John Lewis of Georgia. While Bryant's stunt came across as openly hostile, sometimes our peer group skulls simply hold stores of free-floating white blindness and associated contortions that need unpacking. Here's an episode to share in the case of my claimed silent disapproval over my school's racist rationale. It turned out it didn't count for much for me on 9th grade Mississippi History Day. When we were assigned to dress up to salute the state's past, I had what I thought was a funny idea. I dug in the hall closet at home for a double bed sheet to go as a Ku Klux Klansman. I lacked both the moral empathy and even the acquaintance with a Black person to fathom that the costume choice was not fun but appalling. Then again, my wardrobe selection was a crystal reflection of my education. It said more than my 9th grade Academy report card ever could. I failed to think about how 6 years before, 3 young civil rights volunteers had been captured and murdered by Klansmen 90-odd miles away in Neshoba County. I paraded down the concrete school hall with classmates in Blandard gingham settler costumes. No one called me on the outfit, not my parents, not my teachers, not my classmates. They were as heedless and white as me. Recently, I pulled my yearbooks off the high top shelf. Inevitably, it was there when I looked, a blackface photo, page 150 of the 1972 volume. It featured a trio of boys in gooey face paint, wigs, and cheerleader dresses, maybe from a pep rally skit where we all hooted and clapped. Like Confederate memorials or a still standing plantation home on tour, legacy segregation academies remain part of the Southern landscape. My alma mater, like most others, now has a small Black enrollment and official non-discrimination policies. On National Signing Day in February 2018, one of the nation's top high school prospects was Jerrion Ely, now the Kansas City Chiefs, then a Black senior at Jackson Preparatory School, the Mississippi capital city's most prestigious segregated private school at its 1970 founding. Greenville Christian School, founded in 1969, has morphed into having a 75% Black enrollment and the leading football team all Black and Academy play. Reading Jackson native Angie Thomas' blockbuster book, The Hate U Give, I wondered if Williamson Prep was a disguised Jackson preparatory, as the book's protagonist Star Carter spends her time code switching between her black neighborhood Garden Heights and her nearly all white private school. Thomas told me Williamson isn't modeled on any particular school, but that The Hate U Give, quote, can provide a glimpse into the way those schools operate and the environment they provide for Black students. The hometown conversation that I'd feared as a 15-year-old finally took place this year, but instead of dodging it, I initiated it. I asked a Black Greenwood contemporary what he had thought of the academy back in our parallel high school days. Sylvester Hoover said Pillow Academy had been in operation for a few years before he even knew it existed. He was unaware of the academy just outside the city limits, as I was of him back then. I'm ashamed to say Sylvester Hoover would have been only a vaguely personified idea to me, one which my white culture told me represented a threat to my education, maybe even my safety. I left Greenwood at age 18. Hoover didn't. He runs Delta Blues Legend tours there, sharing local history with visitors. One of the main stops on his tour is the beautiful country church Little Zion Missionary Baptist, built by its members in 1871. It's Hoover's lifelong congregation and the site of the church sanctuary scene in the Help. Bluesman Robert Johnson is buried in a cemetery on the ground. Hoover's tour continues to Bryant's Grocery and Money, where Emmett Till's candy purchase led to his murder. Hoover has a nephew who recently graduated from Pillow Academy. Hoover himself would have no problem sending a child there, he said. He's mulling touching base with the academy to offer to present his local history talk. I bet they'd say yes, he said. Mississippi and those of us here continue to surprise each other. Token integration at the still surviving academies isn't a shocker. Lip service to racial equality is as much a part of the current South as Whole Foods, the Apple Store, and H&M locations, of course. Yet racism obscured can't be confronted. That's the problem in leaving my high school alma mater blank on my resume, as lots of Academy alums do, aware of the status of its messaging in the wider world. I don't list my high school on my Facebook profile. I want to dodge Black acquaintances finding out that chunk of my past. Yet in truth, my academy story must be a part of any honest account of my whole story. For me to shove aside those academy years is indulging in a timeline hideout, a personal history version of tucking myself behind the entrance of a gated community when it comes to reckoning with race. Privilege permits dodges like that, insulation from the discomfort of reckoning with the racist components in my life and thinking, conscious and unconscious. Yet that protection from being forced to expose yourself also means a lost opportunity, potentially, to learn to do and think better. My high school experience clings to my present like so much gooey pep rally face paint. The upside is that an easy read past like mine clearly means its stamp is there if I'm willing to breathe and take a look. Claiming you've never been less than fair-minded and egalitarian is for people with less extreme histories than mine or my cohorts. Hard questions ought to be the obligatory surcharge to our alumni dues. My Pillow Academy class of 1974 motto actually zeroed in on the kind of self-scrutiny that Academy alums are compelled to consider. In lofty typeface, jumping up off the gloss of the page of our senior yearbook, I see our class motto. God asks no man whether he will accept what. The only choice is how. That isn't so far from the truth.
Thank you, Ellen Ann. That was very moving and very powerful. And thank you for being my thesis director. And I also want to thank Dr. Dunkelberg and Mary Miller for being part of my committee. So my name is Teresa Nicholas, and I'm going to put my glasses on. And now I can see. I would like to give you a little background on what my thesis was. Excuse me. It is a memoir. It is being called, at least for the moment, Love Life Story. It's about the joys and heartbreaks of a long marriage between two kindred souls, exploring themes of aging, family, and what it means to leave a place you call home. After living away from Mississippi for 40 years, working in book publishing and as a freelance writer in Mexico, I returned to the state along with my husband, Jerry Helfrich. But when our last remaining relative in Mississippi, my sister, Lisa, suddenly moves to the Northeast, and we get the news that we all dread, that we've each lost our health to chronic illnesses, me Parkinson's, and Jerry lymphoma, we must re-examine our decision about where and how to live in the face of tough end-of-life considerations. This first reading is from the first chapter of the manuscript. It begins with a scene in 1978. Then it cuts to the present. Then it goes to the year 1977, which was the year of our wedding. I didn't see Jerry's face until a year after we were married. It was a Saturday, sometime during the fall of 1978, and the weather in New York had already settled into its winter gray. To live in New York in the winter is to parse the gray, and that afternoon it was a heavy, cheerless hue, more gunmetal than old silver. During the week, both of us worked long hours in the city in book publishing. Just as we did every Saturday, we went to the A&P early in the morning to buy a week's worth of groceries. After lunch, just as we did every Saturday, we tuned the radio to the Metropolitan Opera broadcast on station WQXR. What followed was my idea. I wanted to see what the man I'd married looked like. We squeezed into the bathroom of our apartment, a small one-bedroom in Yonkers. I sat on the rim of the tub. He stood in front of the medicine chest, inspecting his face in the mirror. "Shave it," I said. He felt the lower half of his jaw, first with one hand, then the other. He'd started growing the beard as a college freshman to become someone other than a teenager from Troy, New York. When we met, 2 years later, he'd already adopted the mannerisms of a whiskered old man. The smooth back of the mustache with a slight spin at the corners, the reflective beard brush with the knuckles in the cheeks, the goatee pull with a far-off gaze. Beard stroking went along with studying psychology and smoking a meerschaum pipe, with wearing wide-welled corduroy slacks and tweed jackets and a newsboy cap. "Look at Uncle Jerry's beard," our great-nephew Frankie exclaims about the color photograph on the giant TV screen, and suddenly I'm catapulted to the present. With his shaggy mane, 19-year-old Frankie would be the first to point out the beard. "That's cool," he adds from his seat on the sofa. Beth, our niece, his mom, hits pause, and a tight shot of Jerry, fully bearded, his upper body bare, arms tan and muscled, hands gripping the wheel of a motorboat, floats above our heads. "Where's that photo taken?" Beth asks. "On Lake George about 50 years ago," Jerry answers. He looks embarrassed. It's Christmas, and we're south of Savannah in the great room of Frank and Beth's new house. For 12 years, Jerry and I have made this trip to Georgia from Mississippi to spend the holidays with Beth and Frank and their 2 kids, along with Beth's sister, Joanna, and their parents, Bill and Carol. But Bill, Jerry's older brother by 11 years, and a surrogate dad to him, died recently from Lewy body dementia, a neurodegenerative disease that took him from his years before his physical death. Perhaps consequently, Joanna has had their family photos digitized, and the family plans to watch a slideshow of the photos over the next 2 nights. They number more than 200, mostly baby pictures of Beth and Joanna. So I'm surprised when next up a color snapshot of Jerry and me flashes on the TV. It's the night before our wedding, and we're at the traditional rehearsal dinner with our families. The venue for dinner is the Inglenook Tea House, an old-fashioned restaurant established during the First World War in a turreted Victorian house in the town of Swarthmore in Pennsylvania. In the photograph, I'm seated between Jerry, who's at the head of the table, and his niece, Beth, then a pixie-ish girl of 5. I look girlishly thin in my print blouse and pencil skirt. Jerry's brother Bill is the only other person in the photo. In this first encounter between North and South, Jerry's family from upstate New York meet mine from small town Mississippi. An hour after that photo was taken, Jerry and I left the restaurant to walk home by ourselves. When we got close to the Swarthmore campus, we detoured to the stone wishing well outside the Friends Meeting House, where we would be married the next afternoon. The night was clear. There was a nearly full moon. We walked to the well's edge and peered into its murky depths. I can't marry you, I told him, dramatically covering my face with my hands. What do you mean? He sounded bizarrely calm. Why not? I couldn't pinpoint it, but it had something to do with the North and the South, and a sudden unshakable panic that we weren't compatible. How could we be, raised in our two geographical extremes? I'd been wrong to think that there wasn't a cultural divide between our families. Why not also had to do with not feeling ready, even though I'd proposed first. After proposing, I dreamed repeatedly about rings. For my 23rd birthday, he'd given me an antique cameo, but in my dreams, the cameo always turned into a wedding band, which I felt I had no right to wear. Initially, he had been the one with doubts. We were only 23, and we'd lived together for less than a year. He said he'd have to think about my proposal. He did, and after 2 months, he proposed. We agreed to marry on a warm spring evening over an appetizer of escargot in a suburban Philadelphia restaurant with valet parking. But at the crossroad moment at the wishing well, standing in the moonlight, my doubts became all too real and overwhelming. I just can't, I said, and began crying. But he didn't panic. He put his arms around me. If he'd hesitated, broken off the embrace quickly, I wouldn't have gone through with it. Instead, he whispered tired aphorisms, oddly soothing in their ordinariness. Everything will be okay. You'll feel better in the morning. You're just having cold feet. We turned and walked away hand in hand. For the rest of the way home, I didn't bring it up again. The next day, it was as if my case of nerves had never happened. Standing at the wishing well, this time before our families and a few college friends, we married in a civil ceremony officiated by a justice of the peace. Now, at Beth's house, after the slideshow, Joanna gives us a thumb drive with our pictures. When we get home, I'll download the drive and play my own slideshow. I'll marvel at our youth, our shiny healthfulness. I'll remember again how, squeezed into the bathroom of our first apartment, Jerry shaved half his face and turned to show me how he looked. I liked that face. He had dimples, full lips, a cleft chin. I wanted all of it. On New Year's Day back in Jackson, I make Jerry another proposal, that he regrow the beard. The beard that I giddily propose will have a new significance. It won't be about retrieving a self, reinventing a self, or appearing sophisticated or acting collegial. It won't be about smoking a pipe or studying psychology. It will be about looking hot, masculine, manly. It will be about unabashedly trying to appear younger. This new beard will soften the precipices of a 70-year-old face. A new beard at 70 might be just the thing to rejuvenate us. I look forward to sex with this bearded man. Jerry starts growing the beard. He's silly about it. Some of the old gestures from his college beard-wearing days reappear. He strokes his chin and rolls his eyes and grins at me. He does it to make me laugh, and I do. It strikes me how little we laugh these days. But the beard is a jokester. It's creating lightness. He seems to feel younger, less burdened. Day by day, the hair on his face grows longer. And it doesn't come in completely gray. It's mixed, brown and red with a little white. A beautiful color. He rubs his face on mine. We laugh. I tell him I feel like I'm cheating on him, but the person I'm cheating on him with is him. The second reading is a passage that lays out the central dilemma of the memoir. Should I stay or should I go? This takes place in the recent past, in an evening in March. As I write, I'm sitting on the couch in our living room. The afternoon light is beginning to fade, and the round, old-fashioned furniture slips into the shadow. The room is wide and long, the walls painted a deep red, like the color of a hug. Our dog Minnie sleeps a few feet away. Jerry is practicing the guitar at the other end of the house. The Martin he splurged on, he almost never splurges on himself, sounds like ripe fruit as the chords of 60s and 70s songs carry throughout these rooms. Get back, get back, get back to where you once belonged. I've lived a life. We've lived a life together. Sometimes it feels we've lived the same life. In the early evening in a phone call, Lisa, my funny, smart, brave little sister, tells me she's having trouble sleeping. Our mother was a bad sleeper, but our father could sleep anywhere, anytime. Lisa and I have our mother's habits. Why can't Lisa sleep? Because this is a year of transitions, she answers. I'm quiet, trying to think what she means. I'm sure I told you that we're moving. Months ago, she told me her husband, Joel, would retire soon from his job at the Stennis Space Center. They will relocate to Massachusetts to be near their only child. I recall hearing her say that the move, 1,500 miles from the Gulf Coast outside Boston, would take place sometime in the future. Want to come with us, she asks. Her question sounds offhanded, but I know it's not. Let me think about it, I say after a pause. I'll talk to Jerry. Given the state of our health, mine and Jerry's, it would help us to live near family. And there is no one else except for our older sister, Monica, but Lisa and I are closer. Her question sets off panic in me. When I came back to Mississippi to live, Jerry along with me, I'd been away from the state for 40 years. Drawing me back, Lisa. Jerry, an Empire Stater, quickly acclimated to life in the Magnolia State. But then he hadn't dragged with him my grab bag of memories. The Mississippi we moved to after Mexico was long changed from the troubled and violent place where I'd grown up during the 60s. The mainstream economic and social conservatism of post-millennial Mississippi was more like what you'd find in Jerry's sleepy upstate New York town, more like the rest of America. In Mississippi, I tried to ignore politics, focusing on enjoying life in our funky old house, in our family and dog and cat friendly neighborhood. When I maintained my head in the same mindset, I could say that largely I liked living in Jackson. I may not have felt that I belonged in the small Mississippi town where I grew up, or that I fit in the South with its ingrained manners and mores. But in the deep-seated ways of memory, I did fit. During the last 13 years in Jackson, I've become reaccustomed to the physicality of the place, to the magnolias with their high-handed flowers in spring, and to the camellias in their riotous beauty in winter. Jerry is intrigued by Lisa's suggestion that we follow them to New England, because the possibility awakens in him a latent need to return to that part of the country he considers home. For both Jerry and me, our sense of deep belonging originates with physical familiarity, which triggers deep-seated memories. We were close to growing plants, to the earth and to nature's wilder moods, Willie Morris wrote in his autobiography, North Toward Home, about his childhood in our mutual hometown. When Lisa buys herself a pair of forest green Uggs, so do I. But these fleece-lined boots are too heavy for the southern climate. What does it mean? That I'm foot-shod and ready to leave, ready to become an expat again? As I seek the answer in the Uggs, I feel my old dilemma resurfacing, caught between two extremes, my love for and my aversion to the South, my feelings of belonging to the South and of alienation from it, my appreciation of the region's terrible beauty and my horror at its ugliness in all its guises. How have I not already put these conflicts behind me? A year of transitions, Lisa had said. Transition from one place to another. Not something I felt aware of as I lived my life. Certainly not something I dwelled on. It is easy to see the beginnings of things and harder to see the ends, Joan Didion wrote in her 1967 essay, Goodbye to All That. Yet I believed I saw the ends of things. I viewed my life as demarcated by hard endings. My endings all involved leaving one place for another, making fast breaks, saying goodbye to all that. Had I seen these endings coming, carried over unresolved business from one place to the next? How do we decide the setting for our third act? Third acts, after all, are for resolutions. Lisa's questions sent my mind reeling back to my past, to remembering my leave takings from all the places where my life happened. Is her suggestion that we move to Massachusetts at the beginning of a new transition? Could I leave Mississippi again and not have regrets? It seems as though we only just got here. So I'm going to skip to the penultimate chapter and read a few paragraphs from it. This is sort of the wrap up of the issues and themes that have been going on up until this chapter. I am missing Lisa. For 3 years now, I've been stuck, unable to answer the hard questions she asked as she was leaving Mississippi, setting off this meticulous examination of our life. Want to come with us? Jerry is stuck too. Lisa's question has remained open for so long that I ask myself, is that our answer? Have we answered her with our non-reply? Her question has brought up the old dilemma. Shall I stay or shall I go? Unlike more than 50 years ago, when I left Mississippi for the first time, now the dilemma belongs to both Jerry and me. It brings up the notion of home and where that might be, and something greater, what that might be. It brings up practical matters about our mortality, where we'll live our final days, in the company of whom, cared for by whom. I have a presentiment that we're deciding the question stay or go for the last time. We need to get the answer right. I suffered once from the abrupt way I left Mississippi. I suffered on leaving Mexico. I don't want to regret a move to Massachusetts. But while we delay, I'm afraid Lisa's giving up on us. We visited Lisa during her first summer living in Massachusetts. We turned off a winding 2-lane road with a long driveway and found an older Cape Cod shielded under an umbrella of oaks and bordered on 2 sides by low stone walls. I could imagine a cottage garden, sheep grazing on the grass, men in stout shoes and gray trousers. The setting was a poem by Robert Frost, an essay by Henry David Thoreau. Ah, New England, what beautiful summers, practically the temperature of a winter day down south. If we were to move to Massachusetts, where would we live? Not in a quaint house off a country road, not in a poem by Robert Frost. The point is to be done the burden of home ownership, cleaning, grass cutting, snow removal, what have you. Would we self-segregate and buy a condo for the over 55 crowd? 2 bedrooms and a den in a recently constructed cookie cutter with square rooms and stingy windows? Or would we rent an apartment or move into a continuing care retirement community and take up pickleball? When I was 18, I believed I had no good choice but to leave Mississippi. Strife with my father drove my need to leave and my need to write. No sane person becomes a writer. It's not logical to devote a life to something so difficult and so lacking in financial gain. It was inevitable that I would come back to Mississippi, where, as it was with Willie Morris, my strongest feelings lay. And now, Mississippi, where we lived for 13 years, feels like home, intangibly, undeniably home. I know without knowing, don't want to move. I don't want to leave our funky house and our friends, but I want to live near Lisa. During my last act, I want my sister near me. One day, while idly scrolling through the houses and condominiums for sale on Realtor.com, I saw a listing for a condo in Massachusetts and thought, I could leave Mississippi again. It was just there, suddenly, a feeling of freedom and detachment, so unexpected and so new. I realized a shift had taken place and I could stay or I could go. There's no right or wrong way to think about the end. If we do move, I hope I'll think of Massachusetts as a transcontinental adventure, as an exciting new world. New England. I'll try not to think of frigid winters, but of temperate summers. I'll think of distant vistas with majestic mountains, of poetic coastlines, with scenic fishing villages, of fried clams in Provincetown, and lazy lunches in Boston's Chinatown. Maybe I will take up pickleball. Well, I think I'm gonna stop here and call it an evening. If you have any questions, I'll try to answer them. But I'm not making any promises.
Teresa, would you like to have a seat to answer questions?
No, I'm fine.
You're good?
I think what I really need is a drink of water.
Do we have, there's a cup somewhere? There's a sink back there.
Part of my Parkinson's is this tremor of my voice. I don't really have that much physical tremor, but I do have it in my voice. And it's very disconcerting, I know.
My mom has
Thank you very much. Oh, sorry, you had a question?
I was going to ask where in Mexico you were living.
We lived in San Miguel de Allende, in the mountains. You know Mexico?
My dad.
Yes.
This is curious, when you entered the program, did you know what you were going to write? Did you know you were going to write a memoir? Or did that develop, did you come in with one thing and come out with something else?
I didn't know. Did I know what I was gonna do? You were my first teacher.
You wanted to learn some craft vocab.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think maybe I had stars in my eyes. I wanted to write a play or something. I never even got around to taking a portion. Yes.
How did your experience in publishing affect your decision to write seriously? It just seems like publishing is so different. Like you watch that industry change so dramatically.
You know,
It seems like an interesting choice to make at that point.
well, I always wanted to write. And so publishing was a detour to make money. As a way of being close to writing without actually doing any writing. And ultimately it became very frustrating as publishing changed and as I changed. I worked for one company for 25 years and we had 3 owners. Went from being the smallest, not the smallest, but a small mid-sized publisher, privately owned, working for Bertelsmann, which is the biggest publishing company in the world. And I felt that it was time to leave. Okay, yes.
Did you make your decision? I'm just like on the edge of did you make your decision about where to live?
Not really. That's the kind of stuff. I think it's inevitable that we're going to be going to Massachusetts. It's very difficult because of the timing question, you don't really want to, I mean, I do love living in my house and living independently, and I don't really want to endure the Massachusetts winters and don't really want to live in a retirement community. But it's just sort of playing it a little close to the edge, waiting a little more. Karen?
I was just curious about, how finished it is, like, is it a complete memoir? Is it ready to go out, or is there more to it?
Well, we were talking about that today. I think I need to do some more work on it, but it is all down as a draft. So that's Minnie, by the way.
That's just.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Teresa and Ellen and Annie and Gavin. Thank you all for the week we've had together, or 9 days almost. Tomorrow, for those in the room, tomorrow is our last day. We'll see everyone for our workshops in the morning, and everyone who's not traveling will be around for our last seminar in the afternoon. It's been a great experience. I look forward to seeing you all on Zoom again later as well. See you all in the morning.
Yeah.
Like I'm driving out.
Okay. Yeah. Oh.